The given paragraph talks about the consequences of habitat destruction. Not only does it lead to extinctions in the present, extinctions of species, but also can result in a large number of extinctions in future, right? Whereas we are concerned about extinctions in the present, we do not really care about the extinctions that will happen as a consequence of habitat destruction in the future, which the author of this particular paragraph touts or names as extinction debt. And he says that this debt will have to pay to the fullest in the future, right? And he gives this example of pollinators to prove the same point. Now look at these particular options. It is important to read the question in this case very carefully. It says which of the following statements cannot be inferred from the passage. Okay, whereas generally you would find a question like can be inferred. Now option A says extinctions as a result of destruction of a particular habitat can occur centuries after the habitat has been obliterated. Clearly it talks about a possibility after the habitat has been obliterated or destructed. The extinction of species as a consequence of that destruction can happen centuries later also, which is quite true, and therefore option A can be inferred from the passage. Option B says extinction debt as a concept is perhaps the least understood and the most insidious aspect of the habitat destruction. This particular point has been stated in the very first statement of the paragraph, which states this is perhaps the least understood and the most insidious aspect of habitat destruction, and then the author goes about describing what extinction debt really is. So option B can also be inferred from the passage. Option C says saving a species involves more than mere curtailing of hunting practices. This also is mentioned in the passage. Here the author says that we might curtail our hunting practices when some given population falls to very low numbers, but what we really need, but we don't really care about extinction debt. So clearly we should also care about extinction debt that we'll have to pay for in the future. So option C can also be inferred. Option D says habitat annihilation always occurs long after the actual destruction has taken place. Always occurs, we do not know, we cannot state this. We cannot even talk about habitat annihilation. The passage talks about annihilation of the habitat then and there, whereas the annihilation of species, the extinction of species as a consequence of that annihilation can occur even centuries later. So that is what the passage talks about, not about the habitat annihilation, and therefore option D is the one that cannot be inferred, and therefore the answer.